Thanks, Gwen. So there are two big seasonal events coming up in 2024, the Summer Olympics in Paris and the year-long election process. So let's talk about what to expect. The Summer Olympics this year will be held in Paris, July 26th through August 11th, and the opening ceremony should be the largest one ever and a real made-for-TV event. It's going to be held outside on the River Seine, and the athletes will be on boats, floating past hundreds of thousands of spectators in grandstands. NBC will air at least 9 hours of coverage each day during the games in daytime, and events will be held in locations also made for TV, including beach volleyball at the foot of the Eiffel Tower and the equestrian competitions at the Palace of Versailles. In prime, NBC will air a 3-hour show each night with event recaps, behind-the-scenes access, and insight from the athletes. And this is fun. After his coverage went viral during the Tokyo Games, Snoop Dogg is joining the NBC team and will provide regular reports as a special correspondent. NBC's research indicates that all levels of fans, from casual to avid, are really looking forward to the games. Peacock will stream every sport and all 329 medal events live throughout the games. Also on Peacock will be event replays, all of the NBC coverage, curated video clips, and exclusive original content. This is an effort to simplify the experience of watching the Olympics for the audience. The Tokyo Games aired across 2 broadcast networks, 6 cable networks, and multiple digital sites, which was a bit confusing for the audience. So this increase in accessibility, NBC projects, will lead to a 4.5-time increase in streaming minutes versus the Tokyo Games. And now, like Dan said, buckle up, it's an election year. Projections are that at least $11 billion with a B will be spent on this election season. The biggest implications are typically in the broadcast world and primarily local TV. Quick refresher, 45 days before a primary election and 60 days before the general election, political candidates are treated as most favored advertisers and are charged the lowest unit rates for spots on stations. Stations are required to run those ads, and something called the equal time rule specifies that what's offered to one candidate has to be offered to their opposition. So this really shrinks the pool of available inventory on TV and radio stations. Then compounding the issue are campaigns placed by political action committees, or PACs, where stations can charge premiums to run these campaigns, often many times higher than the lowest unit rate, or LUR. So the candle is really burning on both ends here, and in the weeks immediately before and after an election, available inventory can really dry up and CPMs can climb. If you think from your own viewing experience, in the days immediately prior to an election, sometimes entire commercial breaks will be comprised of political ads. So standard advertisers can really feel that crunch. In the digital realm, the implications aren't quite as intense. The vendors aren't subject to the same regulations as the broadcast stations, and they have more inventory available to sell. So the main impact here will be increased demand on that inventory, and that can lead to higher CPMs. So here's a breakdown of how the $11 billion with a B is projected to be allocated. Like I mentioned, broadcast TV looks to be taking the biggest share of the dollars, about even with the 2022 spend. What's interesting to note here is the estimated increase in spend in CTV and digital. Candidates and PACs are starting to take advantage of these channels' ability to reach very specific geo regions, and they can capitalize on vendors' comprehensive audience data to really granularly target their desired audience. Here's a visual for you, a quick glance at how really each state will see some form of political spend. Some will get mostly presidential dollars, but remember that there can also be local campaigns to consider: Senate, gubernatorial, congressional, and even local state races too. So even a smaller state like Rhode Island is estimated to get about $35 million in political spending. So that map just showed how all states will be impacted by the election, but the states on this slide are projected to feel the most heat. The states in the presidential column are swing states and should see serious spending from both presidential candidates to try and influence the votes. There is a narrow party majority in the Senate right now, and the states you see in that column are projected to be the most hotly contested as the minority party fights to regain control. Advertisers with activity in any of these states should be cognizant of the coming pressure. And here's a synopsis for you of some key states and the hot DMAs within those states. You can also see here that the primary windows cover first quarter, spill into second quarter, and Missouri even gets into the early portion of third quarter. And then the presidential window opens September 6th and runs through November 5th, so it really just piles on to the usual fourth quarter fun. So we know what's coming, where, and when. Now what? Here are some things to consider. Because most political ads, like we said, are must run and the stations want those issue ads that command such a high premium, there will be less linear TV inventory available for other advertisers. You might consider shifting some weight out of offline and exploring online video, streaming audio, and social channels, maybe TikTok, like Brandon mentioned. Think about reducing the levels of weight in news day parts with your local TV schedules, because the news day part is a politician favorite. With regards to all video campaigns, this is our number one recommendation: secure inventory early. Understand that there will be a need to increase cost in some key day parts and maybe some networks to help keep your linear schedules intact. And one quick note, OTT schedules are solid once booked. So booking early secures that inventory, and once you're in, you're in. Finally, consider looking into sponsorships. Sponsorships are typically guaranteed and not impacted by the lowest unit rate rules. Terrestrial radio can expect to see some political activity, particularly on news and urban formats. And DJ endorsements are a great option for advertisers in these tight windows. Talent can interact with your product or utilize your service and share their authentic message with their audience whose loyalty they have earned over their time on air. These endorsements typically appear to fall within the program, and they are a great way to differentiate yourself in a crowded field. So to summarize, the political crush is coming. It is real, and it will impact virtually all campaigns this year. Local advertisers are well served to know the landscape in their key markets. Book your campaigns early. We really do mean it. Sponsorships and packages are a potential workaround in tight times, and OTT campaigns are set when booked, so let's get in there sooner rather than later. And finally, something fun. The Olympics are in Paris this year. They start at the end of July. They typically dominate screens worldwide. There's Snoop Dogg, and anticipation is high. NBC is aiming to make viewing the games easier this year, and there are a number of channels in which advertisers can access the content. NBC is leaning into Peacock as an all-access point, coming off the success of the NFL trial that Gwen had referenced. And now I'll turn it over to Dan for some final thoughts.